wanting to help interpret, and then having already committed to being over the child care stuff.
Well, I don't know what to do are you leaving now, like you're going home?
I'm gonna go down to the booth right now and just walk around the building with her. At 11:30, I'm leaving
Okay.
to go to lunch with some people, some of my students who are visiting my online.
Anyway.
Yeah, so that's my plan. Come on, Claire. Let's walk down. We're gonna walk downstairs.
Just real quick, if you haven't put your name on a ticket and you want to be included for the door prize later, please put your name on a ticket up here. There's coffee and hot water and some snacks over there. There's 2 handouts right here. If you didn't pick one up, you're going to want both of those. And we're going to start in just a minute.
Did you? You picked the one I got too. Y'all are right on the same wavelength.
All right, we're going to get started again. Welcome back if you were here, and if you weren't here, welcome. What I'm doing with each of my sessions is I'm starting us with a song so that we can kind of steel ourselves in our mind, and it relates directly to the content. So I'm going to play a song, And the lyrics, you have a little packet with the lyrics, and it's the first song that's on your packet. So I'm just going to sit down and let us enjoy this song. Let yourself relax, drop your shoulders. Feel free to take a big, deep breath during the song and just kind of calm your spirit.
You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. Oh, the sun will keep on rising in that old familiar way, and every little thing is gonna be okay. You're gonna be alright, darling. You're gonna be alright, 'cause the stars will keep on shining through the darkest night, and you can know you're gonna be alright. Lift your eyes to the hills, remember where your help comes from. Lift your eyes to the hills, you'll never face a valley alone. 'Cause even when your heart is breaking and you've gone and lost your way, you're gonna be okay. Gonna be okay. I know that you're gonna be okay. Not a care in this whole world can take that truth away. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be alright, darling. You're gonna be alright. At the end of all our breath, when we're beckoned on to the light, love will meet you there. You're gonna be alright. Oh, the end of all our breath is the beginning of new life. You're gonna be alright.
Y'all are going to be all right. You're going to be okay. Wow, what a powerful song that just repeats itself over and over again. But boy, do we need that to just understand, you know what? It's going to be fine. You're going to be okay. All right, let's see what we got here. In case you weren't here, I'll introduce you to my family. This session is about finding your inner peace and regulating yourselves when things don't go quite your way. If you'll notice this picture, we hired somebody, Kristen Haggins, in case you want to use her. She goes to Sunset, to take our picture, and it was so windy that day. So I thought this was an appropriate picture to put up whenever we're talking about how we need to regulate ourselves with life. When things don't go our way, we have to regulate ourselves. So this is the family. I have 3 children, grown children, and my husband. We've been married for 30-something years. So I won't talk about each one this time because I think many of you were here for this first session. But all right. Again, if you're a good professor and a good speaker, you have objectives. So there they are. I checked that box off. But I hope that you guys learned some things through this session for sure. There is a QR code if you don't know about it already. On the back of this little brochure I made, it's also up here on the screen. That QR code takes you to my website, and it has all of the PowerPoints. So if you don't want to take notes frantically, you can just go there and use that PowerPoint and look at that. Download it if you want to. Resources are there, books are there. The playlist is there of some songs that I think are good for realizing that we're made in God's image and the confidence we get from that. And just other resources that you can have. All right, occupational therapy. If you were in the first session, I'd like you to explain occupational therapy, please. Anyone? That's exactly right. We can help you with whatever you do that occupies your time. That's the reason it's called occupational therapy. So whatever occupies your time. If you need help with it, find an OT. We can help you. That's the nutshell of it. From babies all the way to the end of life, we help people. Reiterating that anything I say today related to science is because God created science. So I don't want anyone to leave through these sessions and say that, all we did was talk about science, and what about God? Well, every time I talk about science, I am talking about God. So God is science. He created us, Genesis 1. He made our brains. He made our bodies the way they are. So God is definitely science. All right. What are the pressures in your life? Because we're going to see if we can figure out how to manage some of the presses, things that press on us in life. So what are the presses? Think about that. What makes those pressures difficult to manage? How do you respond under pressure? When something happens, somebody makes you mad, how do you respond? Internally, especially. What's going on in your mind and body connection as you're upset at somebody? Then think about, why does it seem like some people just can handle pressure better than other people can? So just some things to contemplate as we begin. All right, we're going to get into some science. That is God science. Okay, so I want to talk about the stress response. So we're going to get a little geeky because occupational therapy is geeky sometimes. So as we are under pressure in life, our brain has what's called the hypothalamus. And that hypothalamus says, ooh, warning, warning, there's a problem, there's stress. And then it says, hey, I'm going to send this to the amygdala. And it sends the response to the amygdala. The amygdala is fight or flight or freeze. That's where we have a burst of adrenaline. That's where our heart rate races. We have breathing, fast, rapid breathing. The amygdala is telling us to get away or fight, or maybe you need to freeze for some reason. So it sends that message there, and then it sends it down to the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands actually are located on your kidneys, in case y'all didn't know that. Then all those chemicals, neurotransmitters they're called, are released along with cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and you may know that cortisol is really bad for you if you have it in your body for prolonged states. It's important if you need fight or flight, great. It's important that we let our body do that. So cortisol, too much cortisol staying in our body increases inflammation. And so we all know that inflammation in our body is bad for us. Inflammation damages vessels. Cortisol also weakens the immune system. So too much cortisol is going to weaken the immune system. So when we come under a serious threat, something seriously is, causing us to really have that fight or flight, we need that chemical because it's doing some things. What's very fun is that cortisol increases sugar. So we have a burst of cortisol, it increases sugar, which goes to our bloodstream, and then that enhances our brain's response. So we're heightened. And that's a good thing when we're under this fight or flight, for sure. At the same time, cortisol. Don't y'all love science? It's so fun. The Lord is amazing. The way he made our brains are incredible. If somebody can't believe in God and look at the brain, I don't know what to say. You got issues. Cortisol also is going to shut down non-essential or harmful things. So it's gonna say, you know what, we don't really need the immune system right now. So I'm gonna shut it down during this heightened event. I'm gonna shut it down. I'm gonna also shut down the digestive system. I'm gonna shut it down. We don't need it during fight or flight. Let's shut it down. I'm gonna shut down the reproductive system. We don't need it right now. And any growth processes, I'm gonna shut them down. Fantastic. We're in a heightened state. We need all that glucose, sugar going to our brain. We need to give a good response. Perfect. What happens if we allow cortisol to release all the time? So again, you're laying in bed at night and you're ruminating, we call it, where you're worrying over and over. You're thinking about what happened and you're worried about the future and you cannot turn your brain off. What you're doing, unfortunately, is you're releasing cortisol. Your body thinks it's in fight or flight. So that's the reason people have trouble, because remember, cortisol shuts down immune system, so people get sick easy. Shuts down digestive system, people have digestive issues. Reproductive system, if people are worried about having kids, for example, you hear that all the time when they're worried about it so much and they can't have kids, and when they quit trying, they have a kid. Growth processes. So we want to manage cortisol. We don't want cortisol to be releasing all the time. We want it to do its job when we need it. And so we need to learn how to manage that cortisol through that stress response. The risk of health problems are anxiety, depression, digestive problems, headaches, muscle tension and pain, heart disease, high blood pressure, strokes, sleep problems, weight gain, problems with memory and focus. All of those things are going to be a result of prolonged cortisol states that are staying in your body all the time. So we need to get a grip. We need to figure out what to do so that we don't have that going on in our bodies. So then there's these neurotransmitters. So the first two, it's really epinephrine. It's the same name. Science gives things different names, and I don't know why. It just confuses all of us. But epinephrine and norepinephrine is the same as adrenaline and noradrenaline. Those first two and cortisol is what's happening during fight or flight. The other ones are the ones we want to make better in us. So we want to have healthy dopamine release because it helps with pleasure. Serotonin is with mood. GABA is calming. Acetylcholine is learning. I couldn't read it from there. Maybe I should look down here. Glutamate is memory, and then endorphins is that euphoria. So people who have exercise a lot can get that endorphin kind of release where they don't feel the pain necessarily through their exercise process. So what we want to do is be thinking, what can we do if we don't need it? Now, if we need it, we do need it, right? If we're in a fight or flight, we need it. But those first three, we need to figure out a way to control those so the other ones can really support our system and our mind-body system better. So we're going to learn some of that, what we can do. So let's think about, let's go back and think about this stress response. So if we, let's give an example. Let's see that we're walking or we're riding our bike and there's all of a sudden a rattlesnake in our way. And so our adrenaline should rush because the rattlesnake's not really going to be your friend. It's going to strike because it's what it's designed to do if it's threatened. And so you're going to have this response. You're going to have an increased heart rate if you're right up on it. Now, you may need to flee if you're far enough away to flee, or you may need just to freeze, but you need that heightened sensation, right? That amygdala, the hypothalamus, sent that response right to the amygdala and said, do your job. And so, woof, all that happens really, really fast. But let's say that you're out camping and your child has a rubber snake, and they come up and throw that rubber snake at you. Immediately, that message goes to the amygdala, and you have that same reaction, but then quickly that response goes to your frontal lobe. Your frontal lobe is where we make our decisions. Good, healthy, correct decisions happens in our frontal lobe. So then in just a minute, the frontal lobe takes over and says, that's a rubber snake. You may want to kill the kid, but it's a rubber snake. So we also need to learn ways that we can talk to ourselves and speak to ourselves and regulate ourselves so that frontal lobe is taking over and less of that amygdala response. All right, so occupational therapy has come up with a lot of theory. Here we are with theory again, love theory. This one is called the occupational adaptation theory. And so basically it's saying that we want to help people internally regulate. We want people to have a normal, healthy, adaptive response. So when something happens and you're angry with somebody, we want you to respond in a healthy way to that. If you're in a situation where it's not really a high anxiety situation, but you're having high anxiety, we want to help you regulate that so that you're not releasing all that cortisol. The environment is also going to have an interaction. Of course, our friends and family and coworkers, whoever we're around, is going to have an effect on our stress response. Because there are just some people who help us regulate well, and there's some people that are carriers of things that cause us to be dysregulated. So we want to be mindful of who we're hanging out with, for sure, and being around. Sometimes you can't help it. But if we can help and make a decision, we want to have good influences on us. So we're going to pause on the occupational adaptation theory and talk just a little bit about some verses. Again, the Bible is full of regulation. The Bible is teaching you to regulate all the way through. So just considering the mind, God created the mind. So we have these 3 verses that the Lord is just reminding us to set your mind on things above. If you're going to set your mind on things above, cortisol is going to do its normal job and stay put until you need some fight or flight. It's not going to be releasing if you're thinking about the peacefulness, the gratitude you have for the Lord, the blessings that are being poured on you all day long, that self-talk that you can give yourself because you're setting your mind on Christ. Other scriptures about he's going to give you a perfect peace if you set your mind on him in Isaiah. So we have to set our mind on him. That's going to be important because he made the mind and he knows how it's working. Prepare your mind for action. Don't be conformed to the world. Instead, I want you to transform your mind. I want you to change your mind. If you take away this today, you have the ability to change the way you think, which affects your behavior. You have that ability to do that. We just have to have some efficacy about it and learn some skills. We learned about efficacy earlier. If you just do a quick search and you look up mind or thoughts or thinking or meditation, you come up with 450 different times the Bible talks about that. Lots of times. So regulation. The Lord, of course, isn't going to, when we're tempted, he's going to give us an escape. And I think sometimes we may think of that escape being a physical escape, but what if? It's a mental escape also. He's going to give you that ability in your mind to change your thought, which is going to affect your behavior. Self-control, anytime the Bible talks about self-control, that's regulating ourselves so that we make good decisions and we have control of ourselves, that personal agency. This one has knowledge, which is important. Knowledge is super powerful. The more you learn the next 2 days and you use some of the principles, if you need them in your life, the better you're going to be for that. Knowledge is powerful. Again, self-control, steadfastness, staying with the Lord. Again, self-control, slow to anger. We could just go really honestly, we could go on and on and on about the verses in the Bible that talk about this. So we're going to do a little activity because I'm an occupational therapist and I like activities. And I figure by this time of the day, you're ready for a break from just me talking. So what we're going to do is you're going to get this envelope with some pieces in it. And I want you, do not open it. Everyone, what did I say? Do not open it. Because we're going to have a contest. And when I tell you to go, you're going to open it and you're going to put this puzzle together. And when you have it together, I want you to raise your hand. Cover it up. I want you to, if you think you have it right, I want you to cover it up. And then raise your hand and I'm going to come check it. So what it's going to look like is a blocked T. You can pass them out. Just don't open them. No cheaters. You can work in pairs. I have about 50 to 55. I think we better work in pairs. I think there's a few more than that. So we work in pairs. You can do it on an empty seat. You can do it on your You'll probably have to do it on an empty seat, because on your lap it's going to be kind of hard.
Or even on this little paper.
Or on your papers. Yeah, you could do it on your paper pack. Yeah. All right, so don't open it. No opening. All right. Yeah, maybe meet somebody new you don't know. Do this activity with somebody you don't know. That would be fun. We have enough if a few want to do it by themselves, they can, for sure. Okay, so what your puzzle piece is going to do is it's going to create a block letter T. So it's going to look just like a capital block T. Okay, when you get it done, I want you to cover it up, and then I'm going to come check it. Okay? And we're competition. We're going to see who can do it the fastest. You ready? Is everybody ready? On your mark, get set, go. I'm watching to see how well you regulate. This is a competition. You guys can do it. You have the ability to do this. A little self-efficacy. You may have to take a deep breath every once in a while. You're not alone. So far, nobody has got it correct. We have a winner right here, but keep going, keep going. Keep going. We had a group of 3 get it right. They had 3 minds working. They're all the same. They all make a block letter T. No, they do not overlap. You use all the pieces. I believe in you. Nice job, guys. I'm going to give you about a minute and a half, and then I'm going to give you a clue. We had another winner. Yes, if they can do it, you can do it. For sure. Right here. So your big piece, nothing goes in this spot. Nothing goes in there. Okay? Go, try about 30 more seconds. Nothing goes in that spot. That's not a good clue? Why did you pick that clue, Mom? I picked that clue because it's a good one. Just practicing self-efficacy. Of your T, this piece sets on it like this. Go here. You can have a person next to you that has it done can show you how to do it or show you theirs real quick. Let your peers help you. Any peers want to show? Peers can show. All right. Okay, let's regroup. Let's regroup so we can learn some things. Okay, I wanted to do this activity because I wanted to create a situation where you had to do some things in your mind that I'm about to talk about. You had to regulate a little bit. All right, so part of the occupational adaptation theory says if we want to have normal behavior, we need to have a balance of some things, and we're going to be doing some things. So the first one is hypermobile. So hypermobile means that when you encounter a new situation, a new task, you just throw everything at it. So with this task, there was no rhyme or reason. You were just, I'm going to put here, I'm going to put here, I'm going to put here, and I'm going to put it here, I'm going to put here. Like there was no like systematic thinking, I would imagine at first. You weren't saying, I'm going to hold this one constant and add pieces to it. You were just throwing stuff at it. So that's hypermobile. So if we want a kind of example of me as a professor, one of my students told me 2 or 3 years ago that she was disappointed in our program because we were trying to teach our students to be creative, but we weren't doing anything in lecture that was active learning, that was creative stuff. And I was like, wow, that is very insightful, and I'm going to start doing that. I became manic. I had 8 activities for every hour. It was crazy, the amount of hypermobility I had. And so then I had to learn to back off, find what works best until I got to a mature spot, which is where I think I am now. But I was hypermobile. It could be in a relationship. If you get upset at somebody and you're just throwing everything at them, literally and figuratively, you're throwing everything at them, and nothing's working. So hyperstable is when you keep going back to the same thing. So when you had your pieces, it's probably many of you were trying to put something in that space that I told you nothing went in. At first, you just kept putting things in that space. So you were stuck. You're hyperstable. And so that happens if you're in a relationship and you're going to try to approach that relationship in exactly the same way, and it has not worked. It's the definition of insanity, right? Where we just keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's hyperstable. Well, in life, to have nice, beautiful behavior and healthy behavior, you need to be doing a little bit of mobile and a little bit of stable. You're going to take from the past and you're going to see what worked, and you're going to try new things until you get a mature response. That's called part of the Gestalt, is what it's called in the occupational adaptation theory. You also have different types of energy. So you have primary energy, which is what you were doing frantically with this new activity. It was taking all of your energy as primary energy. Secondary energy was what was going on in your back of your mind. Could have been subconscious. You're like, maybe you didn't even say this to yourself, but you're like, I can do puzzles. I've done puzzles before. And so that energy is talking to you and helping you or harming you, depending on what kind of energy that's coming from. But that's kind of secondary energy that's going in the background. And then you all had a desire to master that. And that's true in all of us. We have a desire to master whatever's in front of us. If we have a healthy quality, good quality of life, we're driven people in some way. I mean, even if you have less drive, you still want to master things. You want to be good at stuff, whatever it is. If it's keeping your home in a clean way even, and it doesn't have to be anything profound, but everything we attempt, we wouldn't attempt it if we didn't want to master it. So we have that desire for mastery also. So thinking about kind of that primary and secondary energy, I like to tell this story. So first, secondary energy is also those spiritual disciplines. Any habit that you have is second. We want it to be such a good habit that it's running in the background of our mind and creates a certain behavior in us because we've worked at it. And so it's this kind of secondary energy. So that's the reason spiritual disciplines are so good, because whenever you encounter a situation, you don't have to work so hard. That situation you encounter is going to take your primary energy. That secondary energy needs to be supporting you in a positive way. So I like to tell this story. I was an occupational therapist in a skilled nursing facility for many years, and I had a coworker who, she was probably trying to help me, but she would take over my therapy sessions. And so I'd be doing therapy, and she would literally step in front of me and the patient and take over my therapy session. No, girl, you cannot do that. So she did it a lot of times. There was one time I was in a patient's room down the hall, and she walked by and then came in, stepped in front of me, and took over the therapy session. What? So I said, I ain't going to stand for this in Christian love. I'm gonna tell her off. And so I went home. And I wanted to do it in a nice way, right? I wasn't going to be mean. So I looked up scripture. I'd been in the church and in the Bible for years. I had lots of scripture, prayed about it. I rehearsed what I was going to say to her, to my daughter. I said, I'm going to tell her this in a nice, loving way. I'm going to tell her to back off. I'm going to tell her off. She can't take over my therapy sessions. I know things. And so I practiced. So I said, okay, this is the day I'm going to do it. When I get to work, when I first see her, I'm going to go up to her and I'm going to give her the Christian what for. And so I get to work and I see her across the room. And this was a story I like to tell because it was a dramatic thing that happened to me that day. All of a sudden, I see her. I'm prepared. And I practiced what I was going to say. I saw her. My secondary energy took over. It said, love your neighbor as yourself. What does it profit you to love people that are easy to love? Why don't you try being her friend? What? I don't want to be her friend. I really feel like that was the Holy Spirit. I didn't literally hear the words, but these are thoughts that came into my mind. I had kind of a flood of because I was so ready. Once that secondary energy took over, I just relaxed all over. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to tell her off. I hear you, Lord. I'm going to see if I don't want to be her friend, but I am going to spend some time with her because I want to know what makes her tick. And so I started spending one evening a month with her, and I learned that she was one of 15 children. She did not have a bedroom. She had to sleep on the couch. She had just really was kind of neglected. Wasn't abused necessarily the way we would think of abuse, but neglected. There were just so many kids. And so at 15 years old, she decided to go ahead and get married. And so she married and moved out at 15. So what that told me was that she had no control of her childhood. And so what is she going to do now? Control everything. So once I just realized that, I was like, man, you're smart. Take over. It's less work for me. Take my therapy session over. I'll stand while you work. And so it was really good for me to build a relationship with her. And so, but that was an example of primary versus secondary energy. I had that secondary energy ready to go. And that's the reason we need to equip ourselves with that armor so that secondary energy can take over if it needs to for us. Then there is, again, the environment. So the environment matters. So context is not always everything, but it colors everything. So understanding someone's context is important. If I come home from work and I've had a bad day and my son meets me with some kind of, something he's unhappy about that I've done or something, and he doesn't know the context he's coming into, it might be bad for him. So our context matters. Even our home, our physical context, this theory says even our physical environment matters. The lighting, the sound, how much stimulation you have during the day, all of those things are going to affect our behavior. And then, of course, our social behavior again, those friends that are around us. And what's so interesting is that you guys may know this, but you may not, that we are each other's keeper of our nervous systems. So when somebody if somebody came into this room and started yelling, what would all of us do internally? Because we're constantly trying to regulate with each other. And so somebody who comes in and is yelling about something, we're all going to, because we're trying to figure out that regulation between the two of us. And so that's another reason it's important to hang out with people who have a calm nervous system so that you guys can find a nice happy medium. If you're like me and kind of, my husband calls me a hummingbird. I'm always fluttering. Also, this idea of the nervous system. Some people deplete us, so I like to think about it being like a balloon inflated. When I start my day, I usually have a really inflated balloon full of energy, and I can handle a lot of things. But everything that happens throughout the day, if it's a negative thing or it's somebody who is a pessimist, is complaining a lot, slowly my balloon deflates until when you get to know energy, it's good to go regroup because you don't want to say anything to somebody or do something that could be harmful for them. But I like to call it a body budget. So we have so much budget, so much air in our balloons. And so we want to fill that up and have that ready, and we want to be healthy and strong and mentally strong so that as that depletes, we're ready to handle it. So if it's a person who depletes us, it's a tax. But it's a savings deposit if someone is helping us be more energized. And then there's these 3 areas. So these 3 things have to be in balance. Your emotions have to be in balance. The way you're moving around and touching and feeling things need to be, the light, the noise needs to have its place. And then the way you're thinking about things needs to have its place. So these 3 things, in order to have normal adaptive behavior, you need these 3 things to be in order, all equally balanced. What happens if I'm going to have a panic attack or I'm really angry at somebody? Emotion has taken over. And so we have to first recognize that that's taken over. Knowledge is powerful. And then we need to get back to this. So if I'm having a panic attack, what would you tell me to do? If I started going, breathe. Okay? That's movement and touch. If you tell me to breathe. What else might you tell me to do that brings in thinking?
I do the grounding with my kids, so I'll
Okay.
asking them the senses.
Beautiful. Grounding. It's what are 5 things that you see? What are 4 things that you hear? 3 that you can touch, 2 that you smell, and 1 that you taste. Beautiful. That takes care of all the boxes. Because if I am here, I've got to get back to here. So you need to move around, touch something, and think about something different than whatever's causing you this situation. So you could also do finger tracing. And so I breathe in, hold it at the top, and breathe out. So I'm doing movement, touch, and I'm also thinking about something different. So if you're having a panic attack, you're not going to sit where you're at, probably. You need to stand up and walk around. So anytime we have a heightened sense of like urgency when we don't need it, if you're laying in bed, you start having that rumination that now you know cortisol's being released. Do something different. Get out of bed. Go to a different room. Read a book. Don't do anything digital. Digital wakes you up. Don't have a TV going. You need 0 light in your room. FYI. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But we got to get back to get away from this so that we have a normal response. And that's the reason coping strategies work. So like journaling, you could do journaling. So I'm having a sense of like anxiety or could be depression even, and I want to use journaling. So there's lots and lots of good scientific evidence about journaling. I've just started looking at the evidence. I've never been a journaler. And so the more I'm studying it, the more I've decided I should probably journal because there's so much really good information about how it regulates our nervous system if we journal. Something else that's good, when you journal, you have in your little packet a color wheel of emotions. So when you're journaling, one thing you need to do, according to science, that you need to identify your emotion. And it needs to be a very specific identification. So you're not just going to say you're mad. That should be in your middle circle. You're going to follow that circle out, and you're going to find one of those words that's a very specific identification so that you can journal about that. Not I'm mad, but I feel devalued. That's why I'm journaling. Whatever that's specific, the more specific you can be, the more you can bring it to your awareness. When you're journaling, you also want to identify what to watch for within yourself when you're around that person, for example, if it's a person that's made you angry. Identify journaling, write it down. What happens internally? Why am I getting mad? What are the triggers that's happening to me? Identify those and make a plan. Have a plan so that when it happens to you, you already have a plan. You don't have to do a knee-jerk kind of reaction to help yourself handle that situation better. A powerful one to do is a physiological sigh. It's very powerful. You can do it. We do it all day long. Our body needs to go where our heart rate increases and then decreases. We need that increase in heart rate and decrease in our body. Our body needs that all day long. It regulates our nervous system. We do it in our sleep. During REM, our heart rate's really, really high and breathing gets high during REM. So we're doing it naturally when we sleep. So if you're feeling anxious or depressed or having a hard time, you're about to public speak, whatever it is, you can do a physiological sigh. So how you do that is you breathe in as far as you can, and then you take a quick breath at the top, and then you let everything out. So let's try it. You're going to breathe in. Okay, let's do it again. Breathe in. Let your shoulders drop. It has an immediate response to the autonomic nervous system. So your heart rate and your breathing, your brain release of chemicals, all of those things, it has an immediate effect. So it's something you can do just for an immediate effect for yourself. But all kinds of breathing techniques. All right, so we've learned how to regulate our emotions a little bit today. We've learned some power behind it, what's happening in our brains, that knowledge of what's happening. So we want to increase our self-efficacy. Part of that is regulating ourselves, and then we want to practice some good coping strategies because we can't handle stress if we can't cope with it, right? So we have to have some good coping strategies. So we actually don't have time to learn any more coping strategies, so I'm going to have to end there, let you guys have some lunch.
Tell them about your classes in the morning.
My classes in the morning, we're going to talk about loving yourself and the importance of loving yourself, and that includes taking care of your physical body, spiritual body, and your mind. And then I want to pick up all of the puzzles because I use those in my class, so unfortunately you don't get to keep those. And then the last session is going to be, is there a place for Sabbath rest in our lives and what that might look like. And let me draw. Christina Rindo.
Thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day and come back in the morning.
Come back in the morning. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. The Doctor of Occupational Therapy at Tech. I do know Vince Fell. Oh, you look like your parents. We went to church with them for years and years and years. He'll absolutely know who I am for sure. He's the reason I'm a professor. Because he called me one day and said, "I'm a professor." And I was like, "I don't think I can do it." So he gave me the self-efficacy. He boosted me and said, "You can do it." That's nice. That's so sweet. Yes, you look like your mom, Donise, for sure. You do. It's okay if you take a picture, yes. I don't mind. It's a fun activity. Yes.